Hi, everyone. I'm Johnnie Alexander, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today on Novelists Unwind. My guest today is very special because she's part of the Mosaic collection, and as though some of those of you who have been watching regularly know, the Mosaic collection is a group of international authors who are bringing contemporary novels to you, one a month. And this month, it's Lorna's turn, Lorna Seilstad. Did I say that right?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. I think I did it better in practice earlier. She's with us today, and she's going to be talking about her latest novel, which is a real switch for her because she's used to writing historicals, and this is a contemporary novel, but it is wonderful, and I'm really excited to talk to her about how she came up with the storyline and all that kind of thing. So, Lorna, first, show us your book, More Than Enough. It's so beautiful, such a lovely, lovely cover.
It is. They did a great job on the cover. And it was really hard to find a guy that was bald and a girl with red hair. That was like, wow.
You know, as I was reading this story, and we're just going to jump right into it, I wondered if you had the cover first and decided to make him bald, or if he was bald and then you just...
I did a lot of searching for a picture.
Oh my gosh, because I love that picture, and I love that he's bald. We don't see bald heroes very often. So.
I know. I know a couple of guys that are have decided to shave their heads as they start, and a couple of them that were very attractive, and I thought, why not? You know,
why not? My sons-in-law both shave their heads at different times. I mean, not always, but
yeah,
every once in a while they will, and they're good-looking guys. So yeah, I mean that was really, really fun. Well, I hardly even know where to begin because there's just so much. But let's talk first about the story, More Than Enough, because your heroine, just like your hero has this thing about being bald, which is very different. She had a really different occupation. She's a child life specialist. Tell us about that and about how that came to be.
Well, my grandnephew, actually, it has osteosarcoma. And it is a bone cancer.
Wow.
And so he's been getting treatment at University of Nebraska Medical Center, and they have a child life specialist there. And so when I would be there, his mom suggested, she goes, you need to use this as a hero for the book, a heroine for one of your books. And then I would go over and stay with them too. And so I got to see them, what they were doing and everything. And I thought, this really would be a good heroine for a book. But I wanted it to be someplace that was just starting out. So I set it someplace in a smaller hospital. They're very common in big university hospitals or pediatric places. You know, that's common. But some of the smaller regional hospitals haven't done it yet. So
tell us a little bit about what a child life specialist does.
Child life specialists are there to help the child through the trauma of hospitalization. They try to make it as normal. They try to normalize their experience. If they're a long-term patient, like a cancer patient, they try to make sure that the kids have a chance to do normal activities like you would any other time. They talk to the parents. They're the friendly face. They never have to come in with the needles. They just get to come in and smile and, you know, be that kind of person. So I think and they get explained the procedures to them, and kids that are prepared do so much better.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So they can explain things to them in advance or distract them so they don't need as much sedation. And we know with all the opioid problem in the world, we want to keep that at a minimum.
You know, I really appreciated, even in the story, as we see Fiona doing different things with children, it was just so precious, and you could just see how important that was. And in my own experience, I have a granddaughter who has hip dysplasia, who had major surgery when she was 4 or 5, long in the air. And, you know, you talk in the story about the child life specialist holding the mask to a child's face and doing these things. And those are the kinds of things that they did. She was at Shriners, and you know, they had her like test the different flavors that will go in the, you know, so she could choose.
So she'd know which one.
Yeah, I mean, so there are just these, and yes, I mean, it was just like kind of reliving that experience again, reading the story. It was just it's such a novel thing to do as an occupation, and yet it just was such an integral part of the story too. So,
and I was really lucky. There are a lot of videos on YouTube about a day in the life of a child life specialist.
Wow.
And I bet I watched at least 25 videos
Wow.
on
That's really cool.
a child life specialist, besides the reading and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really nice to see the different types of people that were doing it, the different areas, the different kinds of hospitals, and different programs that were out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's child life specialists in some large pediatric dental facilities now.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I thought, that'd be awesome.
That is. That is.
I'm thinking if I'd have realized that ahead, I might have had a whole different career path. Who knows?
Well, I read on your website that you were at one time a professional wiper.
Yeah, it was true. I also taught high school English, so there was a big difference. There was a very little difference between teenagers and toddlers, really.
So a professional wiper, just so to be clear, wiping noses, wiping
Yes.
bottoms,
Countertops. I said all I did all day long was wipe things.
wipe something, wipe a kid, or wipe a something.
Yes, that's about the time I started going crazy and started writing.
Well, okay, well, that's a good segue. Tell us about your writing journey, and how long it took you to get that first book published, and all of that kind of thing.
So I did quit teaching when my oldest son was born. I had enjoyed writing and journalism all the way through school. I had taught English in high school. And then I decided I wanted to stay home when my son was born. And I did start going a little crazy. So I said, I'm going to go back to doing something I've always loved doing. And I started writing fan fiction.
Oh, wow.
I wrote fan fiction with a group, romancefanfiction.net. It's not available anymore. The site crashed. Had too many stories. But we wrote Sue Thomas FBI fan fiction.
Yes, you did that with, was it Regina?
Regina and
Merrick, and I have interviews with Regina, and we'll probably have another one, so you can go back and she talks about the same thing. Yes.
And then we'd have contests. It was a huge group of people and very supportive. There were, librarians and nurses and all different kinds of professionals. It was not a bunch of teenagers, but it was a great way to find my voice. And we would try different things. And then we had a small group of us that decided that we were pursuing publication. So we kind of broke off into a small group on that site. I really felt God pulling me towards that direction of pursuing publication. I was very reticent. I made up every excuse, and every time I made up an excuse, just like Moses, God took it away. I don't want to go alone. Okay, here's a friend. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, here's a mentor. So I joined ACFW and American Christian Fiction Writers. And then I met, we went on a trip, I was invited to meet another group of authors in Iowa, a little farther in the state. And it happened that Judith Miller, who has been writing for years, writes with Tracy Peterson, or did at that time, was visiting that area. And she sat down. I had brought a synopsis, not having a clue if I had done anything right. I didn't even know really much about Judy. Anyway, she actually opened her, she sat down with me and she said, "This is great." She took me aside, read my synopsis. She said, "This is great." But she said, "That other story you were talking about that you were interested in writing, that's the one that's going to sell. Oh, wow. I want you to go home and write that." Wow. And we just hit it off. Then after we had talked, she took us down and opened up her trunk and said we could pick out a book. That's when I realized that Judy was Judith Miller with all these Bethany House books in the back of her car. And so mostly I wrote the first book of the Manawa series because I did not want to disappoint Judy. I wanted to get it done before ACFW. I had no idea anybody would be interested. So I went and had my first meeting with, my first editorial meeting was with Andrea Doring, the Revell, and she sat there and read the first 3 chapters while I was sitting there.
Oh, just nervous, I bet, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching her. I'm like, if she doesn't laugh, I'm going to die. And then she leaned back and she said, "Okay, I'd like a full of this." And I was like, I almost fell off the chair. So that was how it started.
Oh, that's wonderful. But your first novel really is.
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
actually, I'd written another one. I do have one other novel that I wrote, but yeah, it's this.
Wow, that's a really amazing story because that doesn't happen very often. That's great.
It doesn't, and I know it doesn't, and I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that. I had written a lot of long fan fiction pieces, so I had been leading up to that, but
yeah, and learning a lot beforehand and all of that.
Right.
That's just such a cool story that I really that's really.
It was only God could have opened those doors at the right time.
Yeah.
So.
And now, because we've pulled you into the Mosaic collection, you're writing, like you usually write historicals and several.
Right.
I mean, you've written novellas. You've got at least 2 series with Revell and.
I have 10 traditionally published books.
Okay, yeah, that's great. All historicals, and then got pulled into the Mosaic collection to write a contemporary. How different was it? Was it hard to do that? Easy to do that? What were some of the?
Well, I had written one contemporary novella,
okay.
a cowboy one with Mary.
Oh, was that a contemporary? Okay.
But it was still horses. It wasn't as contemporary, but a lot of the fan fiction I had written had been contemporary.
Sure.
So, but story is story. It was a lot of fun to write one that had, I was really excited that they had cell phones and cars. That's one of the big things that when I'm writing historical, you have to think. You really have to think, how long does it take to get from one place to another? Because it doesn't make any sense if it doesn't. So that was really exciting. I'm like, okay, yes. And in some ways it's easier. And in other ways, it's exactly the same. There was just as much research.
Right.
I did have to watch the way I said things so that they didn't accidentally fall into the historical way that I sometimes write. I had to switch gears mentally. I think it'd be very hard to be writing one historical and one contemporary. At least I could stay in that time period.
Yeah. I've done that though, and you're right. I mean, it is. You really have to just kind of shift.
I wouldn't be very good at it.
Yeah. And just kind of focus on one.
Because I did have a novella due right after this one, and I did not start it till it was done. Because it was Civil War, and I'm like, that's going to be bad.
You're working hard on that novella. That's getting ready to launch More Than Enough. Well, show us the cover again, because again, it's just lovely. We have a great cover designer. All the books in the Mosaic collection have lovely covers.
And I had to show the back because she has this cute little kid.
Oh my gosh! So I didn't see that on the Kindle copy. Oh, that is adorable.
He's got his own little stethoscope, and he's checking out the teddy bear.
Oh, that's so sweet. And that book is available now, so you can just go get it. It's been a delightful afternoon reading about Fiona and her bald love interest.
He's very cute, bald.
He is. He's amazing. He's an amazing character. I just love them both. I mean, it was a fun story to read, and you know, Lorna, you can tell that you just have this love for life, and I think that sort of just fit in with Fiona's character too. I mean, she's got some issues and she's got some problems that she has to deal with. But I have a feeling that you're a little quirky, like Fiona's a little quirky.
A little, not quite.
A little.
Don't ride around on a scooter, but.
Yeah, I love that. Fiona, just picture this, riding around in a scooter along the hallways of a hospital. That would be really fun to see.
Excuse me.
So you've got a novella coming out from Barbour that you just finished. It won't be released probably for a bit.
No, it doesn't come out for. I can't remember when it comes out.
It's okay.
It's called The Soldier's Lady. I remember that. That's the novella collection. There's 3 stories in it, 3 or 4.
And the title of the collection is
The Soldier's Lady. Yeah.
Oh, how cool! So what is the what?
They're all set at forts.
Okay.
All the stories are all set at forts on the frontier.
Oh, that's really
Mine
cool.
was set at Fort Riley in Kansas.
Okay. So that must have been some fun research too.
It was a really hard story to write in some ways because there's so much known about the Civil War, and people are such buffs, history buffs about it, that sometimes you feel guilty about inserting your characters into something that, I don't know if I wouldn't say guilty, but I wanted to try to make it still feasible.
Exactly. No, I understand what you're talking about. That can be a little bit hard sometimes to insert ourselves in that. And people that really know their history, you've got to make sure all those details.
I know. And that was, and I was made her a subscription teacher. So she's been invited by the officers' wives to come and teach the kids.
Okay.
Which did happen at some forts. I couldn't find anything that said it happened at that one, but.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of fictional license, poetic license, right? That's good. That's good. And then what's next? What's after this?
Well, I'll be doing another mosaic book. But that doesn't come out until 2021, I think. I don't remember. I have to look again on that. And I really am looking at writing, just for myself, I'm looking at developing a historical mystery series.
Oh, cool.
And I kind of have been working on it on and off, but I haven't had enough of a break to do the research and stuff that I need.
Right.
It's kind of a jumping off about a woman that was really the first police woman in the United States. Somebody else often gets the credit, but this woman actually was.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's intriguing.
So she's kind of would be the inspiration for the story, obviously,
Right.
And she worked in going into the factories and telling them they weren't doing what was right for the kids.
So we're talking about 19 or 1800s, late 1800s?
It would be right after the turn of the century.
Right around in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that sounds intriguing too. So maybe if Mosaic gets a historical line going.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. Maybe if we do go that way, I would have one ready, and it would be something that you could have several books, and this character could reappear. And I think we're missing that in Christian fiction.
Yeah.
We have really gotten away from series, but there's a lot of us that really enjoy a good series.
Absolutely. Well, Lorna, thank you so much. This has been delightful. You're a delightful guest. And I have one more question I ask everybody that I get to chat with. When you're all done with a novel or a novella, whatever writing project you're working on, what do you do to unwind?
Well, I usually have to clean my desk because it's a mess. I don't clean it the whole time I'm writing it. My husband and I almost always go out to eat and celebrate when I finish. Oh,
nice.
And it's kind of just our special time.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And then I read a book that I've really wanted to be reading. I'm reading Laura Francis' newest one.
And what are you reading, Lorna Francis, you said?
Laura Francis' newest book. Yeah. And I talked to her on the phone Saturday. So I'm like, I'm only allowing myself so many pages a day. Laura
I also interviewed her. So what's her latest book? Do you know the title?
Oh my! Now I'm gonna be bad because now I don't remember the name of it.
I know it's hard for me to remember titles too, but yeah, Laura.
Uncommon Woman.
Yes, that is what it is. Yes,
Uncommon Woman. Yeah. And Laura writes like Beethoven, and I always say, you write like Beethoven, I write like the Beatles. There's a place for both, but don't compare them.
No, Laura's great, and so yeah, and I have an interview with her too. So we're pulling in some people that I've already talked to, and that's great. So Lorna, thanks again so much.
Thank you.
And those of you who are watching, thank you for that. We really appreciate your support and your encouragement of our authors. We'll see you next time on Novelists Unwind. Bye bye.
Thank you.